Hi, this is Gail with Beaded Jewelry Diva, and today's project is going to be this pendant. It is wire weaving. We've got a split bail. We've got some weaving down here. We've got some coiling. We've got some dangles and some, beaded embellishments. So again, this is today's project. If you enjoy this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more wire weaving videos, go ahead, leave me a comment down below and give this a thumbs up. At the end, I'll show you another design idea, which was actually the inspiration for this particular one. But let's go ahead and see what we need to do this particular pendant. Okay, I'm going to start out with about a 4-foot or a 3-foot piece of the 28 gauge wire. This is about the midway point, and for this particular project, we work from the inside out. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my 22 gauge pieces of wire, and I'm going to start near the end and then move my work down. So I'm going to wrap it over once like this and again. So I've got it wrapped twice. I'm going to add another wire. I'm going over the top of it and between the two wires. So it looks like this. Then I'm going to add my third wire and I'm going to wrap over it between the two wires so it looks like this. Now I'm going to take these and spread them apart a little bit just so I know which one's top, which one's bottom, and which one's middle. So I'm going to wrap my way up and back. So I'm coming through here, across the back, between the top and the middle wire, going down between the middle and bottom wire, over the top wire, through the middle and top wires, over the top wire, between the middle and bottom wire, between the middle and top wire, down over the bottom wire, and through. So it looks like this. Now I'm going to do this again one more time real fast. This is going to be our first set of stitches. So let me go ahead and do it again more quickly. So this is pretty much my normal working speed. And if you're used to doing this stitch, then this is probably close to your normal working speed as well. All right, and I push it together. I'm going to do this for roughly a ½ an inch. This is more like 3/4 of an inch, but I'm going to show you how I slide these down. Like I said, I started working on this end just because I find it easier to work with shorter pieces of wire. But when I want to go ahead and move this to the middle, I just grab one of the wires and just gently twist, and it will move the wires to, like I said, gently till it's about at the middle. Make sure that your wires are nice and compacted. Now here's what we're going to do. We need to go ahead and make this into a U shape. Well, the easiest way to do it is to actually just bend it up. So in other words, kind of like bend it around your fingers or your thumb. So bend it up so that they're about equal. So you can see that the wires, the 28 gauge wires ends at about the same spot. All right, now here comes the fun part, is we don't really want the wires, we don't want it sitting like this. We want to see the weave. So to see the weave, I'm taking my flat nose pliers and I'm just moving these a little bit. So you can see that now the wires are kind of splayed out some instead of pointing straight up. So this is a secret to getting a nice U shape to your project. And you can use this with anything. You can use it with, bracelets or pendants or rings or just about anything you can think of. All right, when I'm satisfied that I've got it just about perfect, which I think I do, I'm going to take one end and I'm going to continue working in a different stitch. Right now I'm coming over the top of the top wire, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around both the middle and the bottom wire. So I'm going to wrap it around both, scooch it in, and make sure that it's pretty well set. I'm going to wrap it around the middle and bottom one more time, going in the right direction this time. So wrap it around, scooch it in. And the thing that you have to worry about when you're wrapping two wires like this is that you don't want the wires to kind of fold over each other. So after about 3 wraps, so one more time, after about 3 wraps, I'll pull it tight, take a look, and then I'll use my needle nose pliers to kind of mash it down some. And that will give me these 2 wires will stay separate instead of going one on top of each other. All right, I'm coming out of the back. I'm going to go over the top, and I'm going to do this 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Scooch those wires in so it looks like this. Now I'm going to come back around the back, and then again I'm going to do through both of the wires, 2, 3, scooch them together, compress, take my pliers, and then across the top. So I'm going to do this, let me see, probably about 2 more times. So it'll be a total of about 4 repetitions of this. I've got my wire, and at this point I can see that they're even. I'm going to take these outer 2 wires and just kind of bend them away, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop with this inner wire. To do this, I'm going to take the wire in between my 2 fingers and just gently rotate it. So this is the way it's starting out. I'm putting my finger on it and rotating it again. So it looks like this. And if you don't like it, that's okay. You can go ahead and play around with it a little bit. Now, before you do anything else with this one, you're going to make a matching loop on this other side. You can see that I've got my 2 loops now, and they're relatively similar. Don't stress if they're not exactly perfect. This is handcrafted. It's not supposed to look like it came out of a factory. Now I've got one of my 3mm beads on, and what I'm doing is I'm scooching it up so it sits like this. I'm going to take my pliers, hold on to the wire, and then wrap this back. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get some leverage in wrapping this back. I'm going to bring it around to the front again. And I'm going to wrap a second time. So it looks like this. I'm going to mash this down a bit. Going to go over to the opposite side, wrap this again, and I want to again mash it down, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this very, very tight to the wire, to the base wire. Now I'm going to lift it slightly. I'm going to grab my cutters and come in and make a cut. Carefully, you don't want to cut the main part of your wire. So now it looks like this. I can feel a little rough spot on the back, so I'm going to take my pliers and just gently mash it down again. I can't feel anything, so it looks like this. I'm going to do the same thing to the opposite side. You can see now that we've got both of them done. And next I'm going to go ahead and check my wires. If you don't have at least a foot of wire left of this 28 gauge wire, then go ahead and start another piece. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a coil around the inside wire, since I have about a little over a foot left. So I'm just going to coil around. And by the way, there is no right or wrong way to do a coil. Sometimes people like to say, oh, you have to do front to back, and others like back to front. I do whatever way is comfortable for whatever I'm weaving. What you want to do is you want to make some coils. Again, you're on the interior wire, and you want to do about an inch worth. I'll measure it and let you know when I get back. I'm going to do both wires. So I'm going to do this wire, and then I'm going to do this wire, and then I'll come back. It looks like this, and yes, it's just about 1 inch exactly. I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to make another loop above this one. So I'm just going to use the same sort of idea and make a loop. So it looks like this. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Now you can see that I have 2 loops, and what I'm going to do is bring them closer together. So I'm wanting to make what amounts to an upside down heart. And this may take a little bit of working around, but you just need to go ahead and move them so that they're about even and in the middle. And once you've got that place, take your pliers and bend it up. Do the same thing over here, bend it up, and move them back, and they should be meeting. At this point, what I like to do is I like to take the one, if my wires are different lengths, I like to take the shorter one to do this. Bring them together, and then wrap around both wires, I'll call it 3 times. And that's just to make sure that they're next to each other, and if you have to move them a little bit, move them. If they're a little off center like they are right here, and just move them back a little bit till you get them on center. So it looks like this. Now for these outside wires, I'm going to gently move them around so that they kind of follow the shape of these inside wires without making a loop. So I'm just kind of bending around so it makes a nice frame around it. And when I get to the point where I think I've got the frame correct, I'm going to bend the wires up, because what I want it to do is I want it to come right about exactly where these wires are meeting. If I misjudged, like I did on this one, not a problem. Take your wire or your pliers and just bend it up a little bit and try again. So you can see I've got the 4 wires. I went ahead and did a quick loop around all 4 of the wires so they'd stay in place. I cut myself another about 3 feet of wire, and what I've done is I've wrapped it over the 2 middle wires, and it's coming under the 2 outer wires. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a split bail. So that's why you wanted about half, a foot and a half on either side. To make the split bail, I'm going to wrap around once on the outside, one more time on the outside, then one time back and around and around, back and around. So it looks like this. I'm going to adjust the distance between the two wires. I don't want them too far apart. And if you need to, you can move these wires out of the way for right now. So I see that that's probably a good distance for me. So I'm going to repeat this, and you'll recognize this as the basket weave. And the thing that you want to be aware of in this particular one is that you do want to keep the distance between your two wires even. I'm going to do about 3/4 of an inch on this side, and I'm also going to take this other piece of wire and do the same thing on this side. You can see that I've got, actually it's somewhere between 1/2 inch and 3/4 of an inch done. I've got my 22 gauge wires coming off the sides. I'm going to now go ahead and bring one of the wires across the back, but instead of just going over this one, I'm going to move it over this one. So what I'm trying to do is I am drawing the middle two wires together. I'm going to bring my wire around one more time, through the two wires, and around the top. Through these two wires between the top and the middle, or the top and the next one down. So it looks like this. At this point, what I'm doing is I am joining all 4 wires. I'm going to reverse myself. First, I'm going to move these so they're a little bit more well defined. I'm going to go down through the middle 2 wires, through between the top and the middle, or the top and the second, through the bottom and the one right next to it, and then through the bottom and around. So I've got all the wires connected, and I'm going to move them down. Now what I'm going to do is put them in pairs, and I'm going to wrap once around this pair all the way to the back, and wrap it around this pair. What I'm doing is, if I can get it wrapped around the right one, what I'm doing is I'm slowly squeezing these together. I'm going to do this until I've got about 1/8 of an inch or so done. So I've done all this. I've done about a little over 1/8 of an inch, not quite a quarter. And then I wrapped my wire around all 4 wires, all 4 of the 22 gauge wires, 4 times. Right. Now it's time to make the bail. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take and put my finger over this, so I'm holding the front, and I'm bending it forward. So it's about at a 90-degree angle, not quite. Probably doesn't need to be quite that much. I'm taking my bail making pliers, and again, you can do this over a knitting needle or anything like that. I'm grabbing it at the base, a little bit past. I'm going to be wrapping back over and around. Take out my bail, and it looks like this. Now what I want to do is take my pliers, and I'm putting it right at the very edge of the wires. So you can see if I put them on, my last wire is almost even showing. And I'm going to pop these up. So now they're sitting at about a 90-degree angle. I close it, and I can rock this back just a little bit. This didn't want to come undone. So it's coming around out on this side. I'm going to wrap it around the front. So I'm wrapping it around the front And I want to get this little wire out of the way. To the back, wrapping over those wires. Once again to the front, to the back. And now what I want to do is I want to hide my wire inside the bail. Instead of going around all 4 wires, I go around in between. So now I'm coming in between the bail. So now I'm coming around with just 2 wires. And this will secure it a little bit more than wrapping it around 4. So wrap it. I'm going to wrap it again. I need to go ahead and somehow secure this particular piece of wire. So let's see how we're going to do that. To do that, I think I'm going to get rid of these wires first. As you can see that they're long, and I'm actually going to wrap these up. So in order to do that, I need to have them shorter, much shorter. I'm going to cut these to about 1/8 of an inch. But first I want to make sure I've got them all straightened out. Then I'm going to take my cutters and cut them to about 1/8 of an inch. Try to do it as straight as possible. So it looks like this, just a teeny tiny amount. I'm going to take my pliers, and you can use a round nose for this, or you can use your chain nose, and I'm wrapping it up around. Now I'll probably take my chain nose, or excuse me, my round nose, and refine this a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap all 4 of these wires up into a loop around this, and that way I can end up securing this other 28 gauge wire. Now that I've got all 4 of the wires curled up and back, I took my one piece of wire, the one that had been going through the bail, and I wrapped it 3 times around this outer loop, and now I'm just going to snip. And this is a good way to go ahead and secure. It is more secure if you're wrapping around 1 wire than if you're wrapping around multiple wires. All right, we've got it looking like this so far. I'm still not happy with it because I think that this wire around here is showing too much. That's where some of these extra wires come in handy. And I'm going to pick one. I think I'm going to use this one. I'm going to place a 3mm bead on it. I've got my 3mm bead on, and now I'm just going to wrap it so that the bead sits in the middle and hides that wire. So it's going to look like this. Now I do have to wrap a couple of more times, but I'm going to do it through the back. So this will just be securing the wire in the back, and I'm going through the bail. I'm going to do something similar this time. I'm going to make 3 loops around this outer loop. So I'm just going to go through here, make that a little bit more secured. I'll go through here, open up this one a little bit, and just start looping through it. Well, here we have our basic pendant, and I'm thinking that this just needs something a little bit extra. What I've done is on this side, I've anchored another piece of wire. So what I've done is I've wrapped it around some of the lower wires, then I did some coiling and brought it up. Along the way, I added a bead. Now I'm going to show you how I did it on this side because it's basically the same way. So first I need to get all my beads on, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to string it across. So I've got a 3mm, a bead cap, my pearl, and can't find the hole on the pearl, then the bead cap, and then finally the last 3mm bead. So I've got it coming across the front right now, which is not what I want, because you can see this extra piece of wire showing. So I'm going to bring it around the back, and it's actually going to sit around in the back like this. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to wrap it around this outer wire. This first part is a little tricky because you need to make sure that all your beads are set and in place before you tighten it. And if you think it's going to be a little bit loose, go ahead and tighten it before you make the final decision. So as you can see, this looks a little bit on the strange side because I've got it real close here and I've got it real far on this side. So to fix that, I just move things around a little bit. Again, making sure that everything is in place. All right, now at this point, I am going to be wrapping down. So I've got to take my wire, I'm going to move it between these two pieces of wire, and I'm just going to coil on down. And I don't need to coil down the whole way because this bead is going to serve to camouflage it a bit, but I'll probably need to do about 10 wraps. I've got my wraps done, and now I've got my extra 3mm bead on. I'm going to check it to see where it should lay because I want it roughly opposite of this one. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to put it through, see, as you can see, between in the coil, or in the, what do you call it, loop. So you can see it's sitting like that, and I'm going to straighten it out some because it looks a little wonky. And it's always best to go ahead and do things like this before you make your final set of wraps, because otherwise you can end up with beads definitely not cooperating. All right, so now it looks normal. Now I'm going to wrap down some more down here. Now to do this, I need to get in between. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay. You can see that my bead on this side is just, not quite super secure yet. So I need to wrap it again one more time around this one. So I'm going to go through the loop. And again, you want to make sure that everything is in place before you start tightening things down. Or you'll do like I just did. Okay, let's get that bead back up where it should be. And I'm going to wrap through one more time. That is going to secure it for this part. Okay, so now we have it secured here. I'm going to do another wrap, I think, around the outside. And here's a tip. If you are finding that some wires are too close together, take a pin and gently spread the wires apart. So now I can get my wire in between those. And I will do one more wrap, I think. we're coming down to the home stretch now. Cut this, and now it looks like this. So my beads are all pretty much aligned where they should be. Now we just need to go ahead and put the dangle on. To do that, I have already gotten my head pin on with a 3mm bead, bead cap, pearl, bead cap, 3mm bead. I decided to do it because I wanted to mirror what I had done up here. I'm going to find my round nose pliers somewhere and I'm going to make a closed wrap loop. So simple. If you don't know how to do a wrapped loop, I do have videos on how to do wrap loops. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it real quick here. And I always find it useful to add an extra piece of pair of wires, or excuse me, an extra plier to take care of that leverage. Cut it. All right, so we've got that. Now we've got our last jump ring. This is the last about piece. So we put our dangle through the jump ring, dangle, or you put it, the jump ring through the pendant, gently close it, make sure it's all nice and even, and voila. Let me back this out some so you can see it better. Now I'll go ahead and put a chain on this, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at one other idea, design idea. All right, here we go. Here it is on its little necklace, on its chain. So this is today's project. Now let me show you another design idea. This was actually the first one that I came up with. It's the same basic idea, except it's smaller. And in reality, that's what I was shooting for on this particular one, but it didn't work out that way. And because I ended up making it bigger, I decided that I needed to put this extra bead in there because it didn't look quite right. It didn't look balanced enough with just having the dangle down here. It needed something. Actually, I should have showed you that. Don't use your fingernails the way I just did. Yeah, I know, bad fingernail etiquette. But use a pin to kind of spread it apart gently. And then if you're like me, if you can't resist, use your fingernails anyway. So that is the look of the split bail. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more wire work, wire weaving videos, please also give me a thumbs up and leave a message down below. This is Gail signing out, saying have yourself a great day. Bye.